Today, I want to show you a powerful trap that will help you win in more than 70% of cases. And it works all the way up to the 2000 or even 2200 rating level. And of course, there will be a detailed analysis with refutation, but only for those who watch until the end. Let's go. We're going to talk about a position that arises after the moves e4, e5, nf3, and c6. d4. It looks like we're playing a regular Scotch game. The opponent takes the pawn on d4, and here we play the knight to g5, which can be marked as an interesting move. And the point is that here, 895,000 people play the pawn to a 6. The idea makes sense. Why did white just jump with the knight to g5? They haven't developed their bishop yet, and the knight's presence here bothers pretty much every amateur player, and everyone wants to chase this knight away. But what's funny is that after the move h6, if white captures the pawn on f7 with the knight, white ends up winning 71% of all games. Let me show you. So you open the Lichess database. Here I set the filter to include all time controls: bullet, blitz, rapid, classical, correspondence, and all rating ranges. If I remove rapid, classical, and correspondence, I think the win percentage will be even higher because this trap works great in fast time controls when the opponent doesn't have time to figure things out. So that's 71% wins. After the move king 7, we give a check with the bishop on square e4. And here, black basically has 4 reasonable continuations that they usually play. But it's important to note that the most popular one is move 400, 36,000 people. Here they move the king to square e8. This is by far the most popular continuation. And after the moves f5, king e7, f7, king d6, they get checkmated. There are different ways to do it. You can play e5, but the simplest is to play bishop to f4. If they block with the knight on e5, then you give a check on d5, king e7, king e5, and that's mate. Well, and if king c5, we give a check on d5, the king moves, doesn't matter if it's to b6 or b4, and we deliver mate on b5. This is such a powerful trap that lets you win in just 7 moves, because after queen h5, everything else is straightforward. And this has happened even at the 2200, 2300 level, and there have even been games like this at 2400 to 2500 on Lichess. The trap is extremely powerful, but it's worth mentioning that the computer, of course, evaluates it poorly. This shouldn't really win, and it gives an advantage of -2 or 3 for black. But for a human, it's extremely difficult to figure out over the board. Let's think about what other options black has here, how they can continue the game. There's the move king to e7, but in that case we need to undermine the center in order to reach the opponent's king as quickly as possible. If we move to h5, there's not much point in playing here anymore, because they have the move rook to c8, covering the f7 square, and also offering us a trade, which means they gain a tempo. That's why the strongest continuation here is c3, and most likely, of course, they'll probably just take that pawn. If they don't take it, then we simply get a strong center, castle, and we have compensation because the king on a 7 isn't positioned very well. It gets in the way of their pieces coming into play. But after they take on c3 and play knight to b6, we need to play knight to d5. And in practice, that is, the correct continuation is king to e8. But in real games, especially with fast time controls, everyone will take the knight on d5. We take back with the queen on d5, once again hinting that we're about to get to the f7 square, and the black king will be in trouble. If they try to cover the f7 square, with the move queen to e8, then bishop to g5 wins, another sacrifice. And after taking on g5, queen takes g5, king to d6, we castle long and finish off the black king. Then knight to d4, they take, king to c6, queen to b5, checkmate. All of this is not difficult. So king to e7, according to the computer, also seems like a decent move, but in practice, it's extremely hard to play as black. Besides the move king to e7, there's also the move d5. In that case, we can capture with the pawn on d5. And for example, after the move, the plan is, after e6, to give a check with the queen on h5. They covered with the pawn, took, queen to a6, queen to f6. We have 2 pawns for a piece. The opponent's king is in the center. Black, of course, has the advantage, but we are not going to exchange queens. Now we castle. We'll start pushing the central pawns. And the position for black is still not so simple in terms of converting the advantage, if they want to win here. Also, for example, sometimes, here they play... well, we figured it out. King to e8, king to e7, move d5. I've shown that. We'll come back to the move king to g6 a bit later. What other options do black have? After the move knight to g5, if they don't play h6, in that case, for example, they might play knight to f6. This is the second most popular continuation. But we play bishop to c4, attacking the pawn on f7. And after the moves d5, if they try to cover that square, because the move knight to e5 is kind of possible, but then we can just take the pawn on d4, win it back. And basically, well, it's an approximately equal position. In practice, almost no one plays the knight e5. 790,000 played d5 here. Pawn to d5, we'll pick it up. We take the knight to d5. In case of check, the king will have to move to f1, the strongest continuation. But queen 7, again, nobody plays. Everyone plays either knight d5 or knight i5. But after the move knight to d5, we already get a winning position. This is the most popular continuation, and with a transposition of moves, we've arrived at one of Paul Morphy's most famous games. I'll show it to you quickly. You don't need to memorize everything, just enjoy what you're about to see. White castles, bishop to e7, and off we go. Knight to f7, a brilliant move. We force the opponent's king out into the center. Knight to c3, the knight. We put it under the pawn, but this is necessary so that we can realize our development advantage as quickly as possible. Takes rook to e1, knight to e5. The bishop comes out to f4, pinning, the opponent's king is tied down. Bishop to f6 takes on f5, bishop to a5. Rook to e5, another brilliant move, sacrificing the rook. Check on a1, king to d4, and if king goes to d6, then queen to d5 is mate. King to d4, bishop to d5, and if the queen takes on d5, then, well, there's the move rook to d1, but actually it's just mate in one after queen to c3. Rook to e8, the last attempt to trade, and here I'll ask you to pause the video, because for black, or rather, for white, there is only one winning continuation, the only one. Try to find it. Well, now I'll show you. The winning move is b4. Because after the move king to b4, we give a check. If king to a3, it's mate. You have to play king to a5, queen to c3, check. King to a4, queen to b3. King to a5, queen to a3. King to b6, or king to b5. Rook to b1, mate. That's such a funny game, and that's roughly what we get here. After the move knight to f6, we play bishop to c4. Also here, well, I considered the continuation f6, but we won't go too deep into it now. I'll just say that here, no checks make sense anymore, and the knight sacrifice doesn't work. Moreover, we can simply retreat to f3. Basically, we've forced our opponent to put a pawn on f6, taking away an important square from the knight. And we can continue developing, once again counting on the initiative and a lead in development. The position will be extremely difficult for black. Now, I also considered the move bishop to a7. That's also a completely possible move. Probably one of the strongest options for black here. But in that case, we still sacrifice. King takes on f7, bishop to c4. The correct continuation is king to f8, but most people play king to e8, meaning he even shows several different ways to refute it. King to f8. And if we play queen to h5, then queen to e8 will again be a move we're already familiar with. So the best thing we can do is castle and start pushing pawns, developing our pieces, and counting on the initiative, because the opponent's king is in the center, and it's not so easy for white to develop their pieces. And if the king moves to e8, then we play queen to h5, g6, and transfer the queen to d5, creating a mate threat. Knight to h6. That move can't be played because we'll simply take it. After the move knight to e5, we'll take that knight as well. So these are two: knight to e5, knight to f6, knight to h6. These are three popular continuations, all of which lose. The fourth most popular is d6, after which black also gets mated. And the most correct continuation is bishop to b4. We play c3. We point out that his bishop is under attack, and we're threatening mate on f7. But after the move queen to e7, of course, if we take, they take back. Queen to a5, you have to play it. Queen to d4 is not possible because of the fork. So here, after the move queen to e4, white has huge problems. That is, the position is almost lost, to be honest. Here, knight to c2 isn't as good for the fork right away, because there's a move, king to d1. And here, somehow, we still manage to develop some initiative even though we're down a rook. But it's worth mentioning that, yes, if black knows about the move bishop to b4 and then queen to c7, white's position becomes extremely difficult. But even this, in my opinion, is still not the strongest option available. Let me show you what is actually the main refutation of this trap for black. So, in my opinion, the toughest and most unpleasant refutation. After the moves h6, f7, b4, the move is king to g6. Because black wants to hide on h7. And for example, if we keep foolishly chasing them, with checks f4, king to h7, f7, 5, g6 version. In this case, black simply covers up, brings out the knight, and now they're threatening to checkmate us again. So if you suddenly encounter the move king to g6 and you're trying to use this trap, the best advice I can give you is to castle in this position. By the way, white still wins more often, and then start pushing your pawns again to try to bring your pieces closer as quickly as possible and create problems for your opponent. After all, the king doesn't feel very comfortable here. And for now, black's pieces are poorly placed. Nevertheless, I truly believe that this is, without a doubt, a very good and effective way to quickly surprise and decisively defeat your opponent in a game, especially when you are playing in fast time controls, such as Blitz or Rapid, where every second counts and quick thinking is essential to gain the upper hand. So I hope this video was helpful. You'll be able to increase your win rate in the opening with this trap. Be sure to subscribe to the channel if this is your first time here. And if you came here through recommendations, make sure not to miss new videos and new opening analyses. After all, we might never see each other again. See you soon.